Good evening. This is the Rutland Town Planning Commission, and it's May 8th of 2025. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. Approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Second, okay. Any discussion? Any changes? Okay. All those in favor of the agenda as is, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Chugging right along here. Public comment, no public is here at the moment. New business, we don't exactly have any new business, so we can move down to old business and pick up where we left off with the town attorney 3 weeks ago in regards to what to do with our subdivision ordinance. So he left us with some alternatives and some ideas for, well, one idea anyway, for looking at other subdivision ordinances. And he mentioned that we could try to cobble together just the subdivision ordinance. He thought there were materials out there to do that. And he also mentioned this might be an opportunity to do a unified set of regulations, which would include zoning and subdivision.
Right.
Did I miss anything?
Nope, that's pretty good summary.
Okay. Where would you all like to start the discussion on this?
Go ahead, Norm. Well, thank you. Dana and Bill and I met. We
Since our last meeting.
Did we meet?
Nope.
No, we hadn't met.
You and I talked.
Yeah, you and I talked, right? It's a mixture. I think Dana's also looked, I'm sure Bill has, at the Bristol subdivision regulations. And they are interesting. My sense is that they are better crafted than what we have, or even what we look to do. They're better organized, more detailed, and the towns are about the same size. Although they have a business center, sort of, in Bristol, which we don't have here. The problem I see with them, and for us adopting them, is that they are highly integrated and interconnected to their zoning ordinance, including multiple references to the zoning administrator, to the development review board, other types of administrative provisions that I didn't study in detail, but tied to for lack of a better word, more sophisticated modern approach than we have. I had a couple thoughts on how to proceed.
Okay.
If we decide to proceed with zoning, or even before, if we decide to recommend to the select board that we do that. One is that somebody should speak with Kevin in some detail about how the town of Bristol proceeded with the zoning ordinance. My sense is that they must have had outside help, and maybe, I don't know, but Maybe there's a boilerplate that they work from. It's close to 80 pages long.
Mhm.
So I think some insight from them would be very helpful, or from Kevin, because it's the community in which he lives. I don't know that he represents it, but I know that he said he lived there.
He did.
Um, but whether there's a model out there, whether the VLCT has one, whether they hired an outside
Yeah,
expert and what the cost was, because it's not something I feel that any of us has the expertise to undertake uh, independently, like with the subdivision regulations. It's just not something. For example, I think there are 20 pages of definitions
Yeah.
that for the unified ordinance, which is the subdivision. So, uh, that's my take. It's nothing substantive at this point, but I think questions worth answering, whether you want to talk to them, whether you want Bill to talk to them, whether you prefer to me to talk, whatever. I have no feelings about that, but it ought to be done and could be done by our next meeting. Give us a little more foundation to work on and know what we're talking about.
And then why do you think, I'll hand this over to you, Dana, in just a
Oh,
second.
by the way, I also checked, just out of curiosity, that the populations are in 2020 of the two communities are 200 apart. Rutland Town, the statistics I went from 3,900 and Bristol almost 3,800.
Mm-hmm.
But they do have a downtown district, a center.
Yeah.
I don't think that really matters a whole lot, Norman. The layout was less important to me than the integral nature that you mentioned.
Well,
Uh, we're much more spread out, and we cover a larger geographic area than Bristol.
I didn't check that. That's a good point.
I just know Bristol and I know our layout. I mean, we're pretty large. We're larger than the city in terms of geographic area. And Bristol is much more compact. But so that for me is not as much of an issue as the integrated nature of the subdivision regulations. In fact, the subdivision regulations are are basically an appendix to the unified
Yeah.
regulations. And so for me, the stumbling block came with the number of references to zoning administrator, and other aspects of zoning,
Absolutely.
and how they could be. I thought it might be just a find and replace, but after really looking at it, I think that it's more than that. And trying to disentangle the subdivision regulations would be more of a challenge than I had originally thought, when I think I was the one who asked him to get us the subdivision regulations, thinking that it would be a standalone document.
Even when we spoke, you were of that feeling. That it was just, that we could accomplish it.
Well, I told you that I did tell you, Norman, that I hadn't done the research and the coverage that you had done. And as I went back and looked at it, even though I didn't finish the whole document, it became clearer to me that it was more integrated and meant to be a whole, including references to the town plan in terms of incorporating all of the documents. They're all meant to function together. And so at that point, as I had said to you, you had an advantage over me. You had done more homework than I had. But I do believe that having done more and taken into consideration your perspective about the nature of the document, I would find it difficult to just adopt the subdivision regulations without some major reworking. And then there are a number of references to the Developmental Review Board. I thought originally that could just be replaced with us as the Planning Commission. But I got more and more skeptical as I delved into the documents. So I think the way to go would be to have unified set of regulations. In fact, in here, they referenced other ordinances that are incorporated as what did he reference? Stormwater regulations, floodwater regulations, that those are also included in their unified regulations. And the more I thought about that, I'm thinking, why have these standalone sets of regulations when they would function better, more efficiently, more effectively as a unit? So I came to share your opinion, Norman.
That it wasn't as easy as Kevin led us to believe to tease out.
That I was disappointed. Originally, I thought that it might not be that bad. I had read about a third of the document when Norman and I talked. That's what he was referencing. I said, yeah, Norman, you've got an advantage over me. You've read it twice, the whole document, and I've not made it through once yet. And as I went back and read more, didn't finish it, but as I read more, I began to think, wow, this may not be quite as challenging as the work we've been doing, but it's a heavy lift to try to disentangle. I mean, I like the structure. I got to say this. I like the structure. I like the focus. I like the sections. I like the succinctness of each paragraph. There aren't things making multiple references, or at least I don't think, well, they do reference certain things. They come back and circle and reference, but it's mostly as a cross-reference, I think. And it is much more user-friendly and laid out in a thematic way. Kind of like, Bill, what we were trying to work towards. So following that model would be great. I just don't think we can. I thought we were going to be able to get away with just taking this, changing something.
Copy and paste.
Yeah, I was disappointed at how cumbersome it was going to be, or seemed to be.
You done?
I'm done.
One of the things that occurred to me in reading it, and I took a look again at the stormwater, not the stormwater.
I didn't, yeah.
River corridor ordinance that is pending, and which is kind of in limbo with the situation with FEMA, which is another thing to talk about. But I looked at that, and that's its own form of zoning. Because it says what you can do with your property if it's located in certain ways. Subdivision doesn't go that far. Subdivision doesn't regulate the structure, doesn't regulate location for the most part, all that kind of thing.
There was another reference in here, in the subdivision regulations that referenced development. But I realized that the only reason that they could put that in is they could cross-reference it to their zoning ordinance.
Well, they had a plan unit development, so
Yeah,
they had
right.
another one as well. And But, we probably could work around it. I think it would be difficult. I don't know that it would strip it necessarily of its effectiveness as a subdivision regulation. But one of the things I started to do this afternoon, and I got interrupted and didn't finish, was take a look at the list of ordinances that the town has and see how many would likely be impacted
Yeah.
if we had zoning.
Mm.
Because maybe, in effect, I suspect, but I don't know, to some extent, we have default zoning, so to speak, with all these separate regulations
Yeah,
that have been acted over the years. But
but there's no unifying theme. There's no unifying authority. There's, I
a
mean,
unifying procedure,
procedure, right?
it's a wonder we haven't run into more difficulty and challenges and litigation.
Mhm. And that was a major point of his, that what we have now would not hold up in court.
Right.
Oh, yes, for
Subdivision.
sure.
Subjects us to a lot of, right.
Mhm.
Why don't we continue to go around the horn if
Sure.
others want to join in? Andy,
Uh,
after 3 weeks, what were
After
you thinking?
thinking about it, when, if I read what both of you are saying, you feel that a zoning document is the way to go. Am I reading that correctly, or am I going too far?
I would say you've got that probably 90% right from my perspective. Let me offer the extra 10%. It's not just the zoning document. It's the integral nature of what's called the unified regulations,
Yeah.
of which zoning is one piece, a big piece, and from which all of the other ordinances are connected and serve the purpose of a unifying theme in providing the guidance for all towns, all town residents. So it's like a core component. It's not the be all and end all, but if you don't have it, you've got these gaps. And then
Right.
that's what appears to me to be an extremely weak point in trying to do this as a standalone ordinance.
So in that case, I agree with you. I feel we should move along. If it's not gonna work standalone, historically, we haven't had said zoning here in Rutland Town, but times have changed. It's
I
been,
think we owe it to the select board to, if we determine to go forward, to really be prepared in terms of expenses, time, process, the whole thing. I wouldn't be ready to go forward at the next meeting and say, this is what we think, because I think we have a lot of work to do to really dig into it more. And certainly a conversation with Kevin would be one of them. Maybe he should come again, or appear by Zoom, go into executive session, not do it separately. I don't care, but about that, but the
Let Howard- why don't we
the
let
one
How-
thing about this unified ordinance is it really opens our eyes, and to give us a good look at what a comparable community has done, and how well I think it's done. If you haven't looked at it, Bill sent it out, just go through the index, go through the table of contents of the 80-page zoning ordinance, and you'll see, and then go through the subdivision and see how well organized it is as opposed to what we have, and how detailed procedurally it certainly gives. Not that we've had a problem, because we haven't, but it certainly gives the developer, the homeowner, whatever, the Bristol one really sets a roadmap,
Mhm.
even for sketch plans and final plans.
Well, we haven't had a problem, but we're getting closer and closer to a point where, people are developing, just in certain areas of town. And it's becoming closer and closer. to one another.
The other thing that concerned me is that, the zoning ordinance has to be integrated with the town plan. I mean, the town plan lays out certain
But so should the bylaw, the subdivision regulation.
no
Should be
question.
integrated with the
Yeah.
town plan. So
and, I don't really feel I have a command over that. Town plan, we don't, we do it, we put our time in, and then it doesn't come up. We're not faced with it for another 5 years or whatever the period is to revise it.
Yeah.
And,
Howard,
Well, it's unfortunate that we don't have more things that we can look at, but it's a tough situation that we're in, no question about it. I mean, Bristol is certainly a good starting point, but there's not too many Bristols out there, I guess, that we could even look at to try to get other ideas, but it's uncharted waters. And we're trying to, what we're trying to do for Rutland Town, and we need all the figuring and help we can get, and it's a challenge. And you guys that have been looking at it can see 80 pages of whatever, I don't know.
yeah, I'll admit, Howard, that I haven't read the zoning regulations. I haven't spent time on those 80 pages. Norman may have done that. I've only been focusing on the 15 to 17 pages, 15 pages of just the subdivision regulations.
And that's what Kevin referred to. Didn't he say 17 pages or something? He was using a number.
yeah, it's
Something like
under
that.
20.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. And that piqued my interest, Howard. But after talking with Norman and expanding my reading in the document, I came to the conclusion that you can't just adopt those 17 pages as a cut and paste, as Norman said earlier. It's too intertwined with other references, whether it's the town plan, whether it's other ordinances, or whether it's the zoning regulations. And that's what disheartened me a little bit, because I thought that the task would have been simpler. Now, there may be a way, and this will be a question for Kevin, there may be a way to take the essence of this and port the contents over as our operating subdivision ordinance while we develop other stuff, because I'm not going to say scares me, but what concerns me is that what we have has been categorically rejected. So continuing on with something that is really not functional is something that we need to address.
Sure.
I just thought originally, I think it was Andy or Sherman, one of them said something about, maybe we could, adopt this as a phased approach and incorporate first, adopt the subdivision regulation component. After reading more and talking to Norman, I don't see a clear path to doing that. And that would be a question I would want to ask Kevin.
And as a strategy, I'm not sure that's the best way to go either.
No, I'm not, but he made that suggestion, so
So I did bring this up with the select board a few weeks ago, that we had spoken to Kevin and that he had pretty much categorically informed us that what we have would not hold up in court. And we discussed that a little bit, but that's as far as we went. But I think they got that message and they understood it. And they're waiting for us to come back and tell them what we think.
Have you shown them the letter from Kevin?
No, I don't think that Mary was copied on that either.
Well, might,
You're talking about the
might-
17-page letter?
it might be worthwhile considering giving a copy of the letter to Mary so she knows where we're coming from more specifically.
Right, right.
And a thought just occurred to me. Uh, I think Bill said very few towns have subdivision regulations that don't have zoning. But there are towns nearby, such as Wallingford and Clarendon, which are basically the same size as we are, that may have zoning ordinances that may be less cumbersome. I mean, 80
Mhm.
pages is a lot of digging. I mean, what I did with the subdivision regulations is I went through five or six pages at a time.
Yeah.
Because it was, after a while, your head was spinning.
Right.
It just was, it was just the kind of thing I couldn't really digest all in one sitting.
Yeah.
So if there are others, like Howard, kind of implied we ought to look at, maybe there are some nearby towns that,
Yeah, but it might not just be by population, because, Rutland Town has such a huge retail presence.
Right.
For the city and for the town. And not every town of 4,000 has a South Main Street,
Right.
now I understand that, but they still have zoning
Right.
and they still have subdivision regulations, and maybe their subdivision regulations are succinct. It-
Yeah,
it-
maybe.
you
I mean, Woodstock is about our size, but in terms of population, but nowhere close to our size in terms of geographic
Right.
spread.
There should
and
be other
diversity.
additional considerations.
Yeah, I mean, we have much more development, much more, economic development. We have manufacturing. and,
Manufacturing as well, yeah.
And Woodstock doesn't have that. They have a tourist industry that is very well developed. We don't quite have that, but we have a huge, like you said, retail sector. And, we both have opportunities for outdoor recreation. So, it's.
And, and the Walmart Supercenter coming
It's
in
coming, right.
is, it looks like it's coming, and, what does that lead to?
Right. And I think that would be it would be helpful if there were a plan in place to address what possible changes might be desirable in terms of our land use allocation once something like a supercenter comes in.
Right.
Um,
Right. Yeah, and the planets are kind of aligning here. I mean, our town plan is it's due to be finished in 28. So, a lot of some towns start 2 years before. Definitely, if you wait till the year before, that's like the only thing you're doing for that year.
The other thought, Barbara, that
So
I
2
had,
years would be like next year,
right,
we would start.
one of the things that occurred to me, I made a comment either last meeting or the one before, that we didn't have a lot of land to be developed. And I have to back off of that because I've ridden around and there's still a lot of land, certainly on the north end, going north from Route 7 and Grove Street and that kind of thing. There's a lot of open land. And there's other areas where there's a lot of open land too. So my observation doesn't really hold very much weight. I withdraw it.
and we don't have specific designations, we have general designations.
Mhm.
And we might want to be a little bit more specific in how that any future developmental use is,
Yeah, we've
Right, the
got that.
land use
We've
map.
got a possible village center we could take advantage of.
yeah, I was
Talk about
thinking,
a pocket park.
I
We
was
have a
thinking,
pocket
Bill,
center.
we have that, but those are only recommendations. They're not codified, and some of them allow interpretation or multiple uses, and I think that a more structured approach such as zoning would allow there to be more directed development. And what I mean by directed is, I mean, not telling people, but requiring people to uh tie in their development ideas with the town plan and with the regulations that we would have, so that it can be planned and not chaotic. The other thing, though, on the downside, because I know that this is going to be considered, the number of references to the Developmental Review Board is significant. And that would require the constitution of another entity by the select board to manage and implement these unified regulations. Do I have that right, Bill?
Yes. I think, there's a lot of, we're doing a lot of forward thinking and forward discussions, but there's a discussion that needs to be had before any of this gets anywhere.
Right.
And I think formulating communication from between the bodies needs to happen, because you go and they say no, and then it comes back here and like you're in favor of it. So there largely needs to be a different way of communicating, whether we get a recommendation from Kevin in writing on his, what he thinks the direction we should go, and it goes to both the board and the planning commission, or the planning commission, comes to the board meeting and talks with them, like plan a meeting for that. Like,
Yep.
I think when you brought it up, not really abstract, but like lob that balloon out there, the two corners are like,
I wasn't suggesting that, Bill, because I'm familiar with the history.
right.
Uh,
But until you get
And-
buy-in from them, none of these other conversations
Matter.
are gonna go anywhere.
Right.
Like it
Specific-
doesn't,
yeah.
yeah.
You're absolutely right. And that was my thought about having Kevin here or consulting further with him, or one of the thoughts.
So,
Because
go ahead.
it is a huge step for the community.
Yes.
And historically, there's been a lot of resistance to it. I lived in, in a town for close to 40 years. And every so often
But the voters actually passed it, Norman.
Right.
We've talked about that a couple of times. They were actually adopted. Zoning was adopted. I remember that.
Not adopted in a
It
legal
was,
sense.
it was,
approved.
zoning regulations were approved by the voters.
by
I
the select
think
board,
The voters.
the
voters.
voters.
Was
I don't know.
60% or something like that?
That was a survey.
Yeah, there was a
Oh, it was only a
poll.
survey?
It was only a survey.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
I thought
never
it
the
went to the
document,
voters.
never went
No?
to the voters. That as I'm sure of it, actually.
I think that.
Sorry, I miss.
There may be some, I won't say misunderstanding, but maybe not an understanding of what, because it's only been talked about as the 6-letter word. It's never been talked about, here's the things we're looking at including with it. We're not looking to include, you need to paint your house number 7 eggshell white. We want to include things like setbacks. We want to include things like livestock. We want to, those kinds of things that I get phone calls about every single week. Like, those are the things that people want to know what to do. And in the absence of it, it's more of a problem than less of a problem. Right.
So there are some board members who it's fine. They don't want more government. That's fine. But this is not really more government. This is government directing people in in what's best for the residents. Like you said, there's more development happening. It's getting closer and closer and closer. As we do more subdivisions, that's 5 acres now, 5 1-acre parcels. Now it's 5 houses at a 1 house. Like there's more people closer together. It's like we do with the short-term rentals. Take care of it before it's a problem, because once it is, it's too late.
And new housing is needed.
Yeah, and new housing is in. And housing, transportation, and job opportunities are key factors in driving economic development. I mean, it's clear, whether it's our state or somebody else or a huge municipality, those 3 things have to play in together. And if we aren't considering those or a plan to address those, then we're short selling ourselves. That's maybe why we're having such difficulty in Rutland County, or at least in our area, for maintaining a population with the city. The city's population is is the biggest loss of population statewide since the 2020 or 2010 census. I don't understand. I mean, there are attractive features and there are opportunities. I'm having difficulty fathoming why we're struggling. And then I come back to those 3 factors that we need to address, and that's squarely in our wheelhouse.
So my thought is, like, I think the group has, for a very long time, this group is generally in favor of something. We're not down to like the nitty gritty yet, but there needs to be a conversation with the select board about, here's what we're looking at and here's what we're not looking at. Like the things that we're not going to do, because so the things that we are not wanting to do versus the things we do want to do, and what that involves. And it is looking at the state statute for subdivisions. It is practically impossible to write these things without
zoning, right?
I don't, it's practically in the chapter, like zoning's in the chapter, subdivisions is part of it. Like, it's like they assume you have it, or like, I don't know how we're going to do this. And I don't think, there was one about, we said we can't use it. And he's like, great, less government. That's okay. But the problem is we don't have, if it goes away, because it's not good, because we can't deny anything, because if we deny it, they're just going to challenge it in court and they're going to win. So what's the point of denying it? That's not good either. So we're kind of tying our own hands. So, okay, so it goes away. But if it goes away, then there's no rules, which is very bad.
Chaos.
Yeah, right.
Right. Norm,
The more I hear this discussion, and particularly Bill's input, and you've nailed it. The more I think we need to do a little more research, maybe meet with Kevin once, and then have a joint meeting of the 2 boards, the select board and us, and discuss what everybody has talked about tonight, but particularly what Bill has said. And just maybe in the first, with the Bristol subdivision regulations, in the first 5 pages, when I went through it the second time, I just decided to see how interrelated it was to the zoning ordinance. And there were 25 references to the Development Review Board in the first 5 pages.
Right. It's a good document, but it's a piece. It's not
That's
a
right.
thing.
Oh,
it's a
that's exactly
piece.
what Dana said.
So,
Yep.
so right. So do you want, so do the 3 of us want to get back together and look at something? Do we want, what do you want to do next?
Well,
what would be the research? Number one.
I think if
We're
we're gonna
still
meet-
looking for towns with just subdivisions.
I don't,
You know, Barbara, let
It-
me try to offer a focus, because as we've been talking, and I've been thinking after our conversation the other night, Norman, there are two things, and something that Andy said this evening, as well as something Bill just said. There are two points that I think are essential to any work that we do from now on, whether that's the three of us taking this on, or whether it's a component of what we do with the select board. And it may be both. But there are two things that I think are essential, that we don't go anywhere unless we address them. One is a common vision of what we want. And that common vision has to include the select board. The second is a roadmap. And the roadmap is, okay, if we want to embark on this journey, how are we going to get to the end point? And that includes the resources that we need, the regulations that we're going to include, and some guidance / support in getting there. Now, the common vision, Kevin may be able to help us, may not be able to help us. Either way, we need to be meeting jointly with the select board or some subcommittee of the select board that's empowered to help us make decisions or to make decisions collectively with us. With respect to the roadmap, he's drafted this. He's worked on this. He lives in Bristol.
Right.
He could help us identify those components and maybe a timeline, and also maybe
Or
the
maybe not
steps. that we
Kevin, but maybe not Kevin, but maybe someone on
Yes,
Bristol, because
absolutely.
they may be more cost effective.
No. I'm sorry. I was only using Kevin as a placeholder for somebody with the knowledge to guide us through the process.
So, you know, I think you're talking about the roadmap. I think that's very, very appropriate. You know, we are 6 months away from starting budget talks, which is just ridiculous. Budget talks for next year. So if we can sooner have a discussion with the board and at least hopefully get some consensus from them on how they want us to do this. And if they say, let's take a look and see what they would look like. Because I think part of the problem is that the let's see what it is versus I don't want it at all. You know, I hope there could be some collaboration. But if we start that conversation and over the next few months, we work on the roadmap about here's what we're going to need, then come November, we can put in the budget what we're going to need, because we're going to need help from people outside of the town.
Right.
July of next year, which also is going to be when we start the town plan. So I think professional services for this group needs to include the capacity to go out and pay people to come help us with some of these things, so it gets done more efficiently.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good point. Norm?
I agree 100%. And part of the basis for my agreement is that if you look at the zoning regulations, I can't fathom, and this is no put down, that a town prepared them without an outside consultant, not necessarily
Probably.
a lawyer.
Right.
But there must be, and maybe the League of Cities and Towns can help us, but there must be some kind of professional.
Or some sort of regional planning commission maybe could help us.
No, I think outside consultants who specialize
The
in,
regional planning commission. Yeah.
oh, okay. Whether you do it, whether your office
Oh,
does
no,
it,
no.
Yeah.
no, whether your office does it or your office is aware. But I think if we're going to go to the select board equipped to have a positive, productive discussion, we need to know what we need to do this. And I think basically that was what you were
Yeah.
saying. And I think a quick phone call to Kevin to ask him how Bristol got there would really open the door to some discussion, whether he says, no, they did it themselves, or he said, no, they hired somebody. Who was it? And at least open the door to some kind of examination that will inform us so we can talk intelligently to the select board.
I think if they can be on board with,
I'm sorry.
I think if the select board could be in favor of, let's look at what it could look like. And, you know, we know what we have is not working. We have to do something. And I don't know if there's really many other options at this point. So I think if we can get some consensus from them on saying, okay, so let's put in the budget some funds to hire some people to come talk to us, or put together some rough drafts or something, and go from there, and then have them look at it and be like, you know, this, we all know that we have to do something. And it seems like the something options are pretty limited at this point.
Well, I think
Yeah,
the
that's the next part of the message. I think that they got the message that we have to do something.
I think that, you know, just to clarify, if I may, Bill, one, we have an ordinance that's unenforceable. I'm not sure that it's been put to them in that language yet.
It has. It has.
Yeah, do they understand that we're flying blind? Basically.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
And they know why. They know that, like Kevin said, the subdivision is so filled with references or zoning like components.
Mhm.
That we don't have the authority to
All
include.
right, so that message has been delivered, but we can reinforce it.
Yeah.
And secondly, I think, again, we don't talk to them unless we have some guidance on how to do it and what it's likely to cost.
Yeah, you know, Norman, I'm gonna disagree with that because
Yeah.
that is, it really doesn't matter. What matters is, we need to look at what the common vision is, because we have to do something. Once we understand what the something is, then we can put a price tag on it. That's what Barbara was talking about. But to say that we have to wait to figure out how much it's going to
Well, I
cost.
don't mean, I didn't mean to mislead you. Just get
Okay.
an idea, just a rough idea. If Bristol hired an outside consultant, who was it, and can we find out what it was? This is an example, not conclusive.
Okay.
Just an outline of information that I would rather go to the meeting with that and never get to it, if it turns out that, then go empty handed and they raise it and we don't have an answer and we're another 2 months down the line in delay. We got to put the pedal to the metal here. And so it's a phone call, Dana, whether we use it or not doesn't make any difference. It's a phone call.
We've all been talking about Bristol's ordinance. And so how far, in your opinion, is Bristol's ordinance far from what we would need? Or perhaps bringing in Bristol's in one other towns and going through it. Obviously, this ordinance that Bristol wrote is, you're in agreement that it's substantially correct. Am I wrong in
I
taking
think it's
that?
like 120 pages combined, right?
Yes.
Yeah, which is really, for a combined, for what it is combined, that's not a lot.
No, they're including in the unified regulations, multiple ordinances.
Right.
The two key components of which are zoning and subdivision regulations.
Mhm.
That represents 90%, well, maybe not.
Which makes
80%,
sense.
yeah.
But again, it's not a lot of regulation in there. But starting with that and being like, okay, so first of all, what are they doing that we won't do?
Right.
You know, and then what are they doing that we want to do? And then is there anything else? You know, so I think that's a good example. And you know, Kevin's a little biased about it, which is fine.
Yeah.
But like, I think Killington has something similar, zoning and subdivisions in reference to each other. So there are certainly towns that have both are more prevalent than the ones that we're basically two of us in this.
Can I,
we go to Howard? He had
Oh,
his
yeah.
hand up.
Yeah, sure.
Question is, I wonder how they're handling existing conditions and situations, because that question is gonna come up, I'm sure, in a lot of minds is what, what's gonna happen. We've had everything this certain way for all these years of my property, and now what? Has that been something you stumbled onto, Norm or Dana?
Well, there's a component of zoning called non-conforming uses.
Mhm.
With grandfathers in everything that exists. You're not gonna have to tear down anything.
Right.
But the zoning contemplates non-conforming uses. I didn't go through to look, but
So when it goes into effect, that's your baseline.
That's your baseline.
Yeah.
The other thing, Howard, is that like we've been doing on the planning commission, we entertain waivers and we grant them. So there would be an opportunity, even if zoning were adopted, to have a process for requesting waivers. So it's not like it's the be all and end all. Something with a legitimate purpose could be waived, depending on the common benefit. But it's not, you're not just gonna waive something because somebody wants to put it up against their property line and the neighbor doesn't want them to encroaching. I mean, that you're not gonna waive that. But if there's a reason that you have some obstacle in your way that would prevent a sewer line from going into place unless you had a waiver, we could do that. I mean, I'm just making this stuff up, but there are those opportunities to have a meaningful discussion.
To create
let's get
workable
back-
solutions.
Right, that's exactly right, Howard, exactly right.
So let's get back to what you referred to, Dana, as the common vision. To work with the select board. What are the best next steps?
Interesting that you asked that because I was hoping to jump there a few minutes ago, but we did a bird walk. First, I'll concede to my esteemed elder colleague on the right side.
you feeling okay?
What's that? You want me to repeat that? No, I'm sorry.
Yes. I got 5
No,
minutes.
no,
I
no.
have to leave at 7:30.
You've got 5 minutes. Well, I won't talk about you for the next 5 minutes, but I will say that it's probably worth getting some information. And then you just kind of volunteered yourself, Bill, because you were talking about Killington's zoning regulations, and they probably have unified regulations as well. My question would be, could you fire off an email to a variety of towns? We can use Bristol, we can use Killington, and anybody else that you might think that would have
How about Brandon?
Yeah, I was thinking.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Brandon, yep.
Mm-hmm.
And just ask them how much they budgeted. If they did,
The history of getting it.
yep, and how much they would estimate that it cost them, one in time and two in dollars. Okay, that way we're prepared to answer the question that Norm threw out there. And I think he's right, that the better prepared we are, the more homework that we've done, the more forward thinking we can be, the better positioned we are to have a conversation. I would then say, to your
Let's
point,
add Fairhaven to the list.
I would then say, Barbara, that once we have that, it's okay to open up the conversation to address the select board. Now, the question is, and you probably know better than I, how to go about that. Is that first a conversation between you and Mary about no?
Oh, go ahead.
About how to get this onto an agenda item? Does she
Well,
want
you know.
us to, does she want us as a team or the whole planning commission or some representative group to talk to them in a public meeting? Or would she prefer to have a joint meeting
where we can, raise this question, only have one
Yeah,
agenda
I think
item.
it should be posed that we would like a meeting with the select board.
Right,
And how would you like that to
play out, yeah.
play out?
Meet to discuss the future of the subdivision regulations.
And then, and would that be then a conversation between you and Mary to just logistically?
That
strategize
that would be, yeah,
Okay.
that's
So
specific.
and then you, right, then you decide and you come back and tell us, or you send us an email and tell us that it's happening on such and such, an evening at a select board meeting, or we're going to have some joint meeting, which could be at our next planning commission meeting. I don't know. I'm making this stuff up as I'm thinking about it.
About not,
That's
I would
good.
think your statement about the vision, I think it'd be very important for us to go in unified as to exactly be able to make our case for exactly what we want and why we want it. And I think that would take us another meeting to sit down and really go over and make up the points of what we want on there. Specifically why we feel that what we've been talking about, using the Z word, which I know is, why we feel it's important and what all the pros are. And certainly there are a lot of them. I mean, certainly most of the people in the state live with zoning,
Yes, right.
population wise, even if maybe by square miles of land isn't all covered, but I believe that the vast majority of the population live under it. And I think, and just one other thing about the towns we're looking at, hopefully we could find out how long their zoning has been in effect, because we probably would want to model take a look more at ones that were just recently created, rather than ones that have been enforced for a long time and that have been piecemeal modified.
Yeah. I mean, that's a valid point.
Yeah.
When I was talking about the common vision, you raise a good point, Andy, talking about us being on the same page, just in terms of the points we see that are salient, that are really important. And if the work is falling to us to do it, we need to be able to present a unified vision about why this work is important.
Do you need Norm to vote on the minutes?
No, I think we've got 4.
The other thing is the common vision with the select board about what we want to achieve in terms of, and that may be an extension of what we're looking at from a planning commission's perspective. But the common vision I was talking about is the common vision between the planning commission and the select board about how we want to, what are our common points of interest.
Well, I'm going to be devil's advocate here.
Sure.
Suppose we're fairly in a line and we're 3-2. The other board, select board's 3-2 or 2-3. Do we, that could just, do we still continue onward? I would say
We're at a point where something has to
Has to
happen.
happen.
Yes.
If they're like, this is not the plan, the path we want to take, then okay, then what is the path?
right.
Because there has to be something, and okay, if that's the decision, then there needs to be a plan B, and
Yeah.
and it can't be, I'm not sure.
Do you remember, Bill, and I can't remember, at one point we had, even on the planning commission, we had a topic, and we ended up creating a subcommittee, which was almost everybody on the planning commission. And it wasn't the subdivision regs. It was either view sheds or it was something else. And we were a little bit all over the place in terms of what we thought was important, but we all got together, and I can't remember how it all developed. I just remember that Jerry said something to me afterwards. He said, I misunderstood you, or I misunderstood your perspective until we got together and we just focused on these things. I can't remember what that
We did the view sheds for the town plan.
was. That it then?
Might have been. I
And
don't,
what I remember was that we were having a conversation, and all of a sudden things clicked. Where everybody had their own, it might have been something to do with the land use map too. But I can't remember. But I remember that as we sat down and we talked it through, there were more points in common. And then all of a sudden something clicked and we had a productive discussion focused on what we saw in common rather than what we saw differently.
Yeah, I remember that too. I don't know if council was either, but yeah.
But that's the answer, the only answer that I can come up with, because we on the planning commission here,
Was it talking, I think, was it the short-term rentals, like the inspections?
It could have
It might have
been.
been.
That was,
It could've
we
been.
were, yeah, we went around and around on
Yeah.
that.
but we found our voice and we found our common
He's talking
perspective.
about like the inspections can be very expensive and they want to go through it, but it's like, but yeah,
There was something, it was a topic like that, where we weren't all unified, but we became unified
Right.
as we
So-
had a subcommittee working on it together. And that's the approach that I think we would have to take to answer your question, Andy, about, if it's split, if we're unified and they're split, then we invite them all into the conversation to see where we can find the greatest unanimity about things that we agree on.
Mhm.
And then it's no longer a positional stance.
Right.
It's it's a collective understanding.
Mhm. But I don't think we as a group are there yet. We're not there to say, this is what we want. This is what the town needs. Are we?
I think we're close. I haven't heard anyone say, no, let's not follow the zoning path.
I
That
think,
Well,
the
yeah, in
subdivision
general,
path is
yeah, I'm
better.
talking
And
specific.
nobody has made the case for subdivisions, for subdivisions only
Only.
without zoning.
Right. And so Barbara,
I
to
think
your
you're right.
point, I don't know that we need to be before we get them involved in the conversation. We all know the general framework that we need. The details can be worked out as a common team between the select board and us as we have those conversations, because what I believe in is the dynamics of the members of the planning commission to share diverse opinions and to get to a common understanding of something that's beneficial. And what I would hope could happen is that by harnessing that collaboration and bringing all the members of the select board into it, that we could come to a consensus, if not an absolute decision on what would be important.
Yeah.
And, I don't know all of the personalities that well, but I believe in process. And I believe in the ability of each one of our planning commission members to be able to strike a chord that would be persuasive.
Are we ready for that?
If I could, I think that's what Dana, and I agree with, is that what we should be looking at for next week's meeting, I think, is to really come up with the points, and we should all think about why we're convinced that zoning is the right thing for this community, and come up with points and be able to get them down on paper.
And what that looks like in terms of what goes into it is open for discussion.
But those, I think we all, I would say, I don't know of anyone on this. And well, I don't know how Sherman and Jerry think, and I can't talk to them.
Yep.
As I said, I haven't heard anyone trying to make a case that we shouldn't go to zoning. We should try to create a subdivision ordinance that stands alone, and what the gain would be overall.
What the gain will be.
Right.
The gain, the general
Gain.
gain. Yeah, I think that's important.
Howard, do you buy that?
Yeah, I think that's where we're at. Yeah, there's no other choice at this point to either stay as we are or try to look ahead.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
and we're being strongly encouraged not to keep things as they are because it's a lawsuit waiting to happen.
Right. Okay, yeah, that sounds like a great next step. In conjunction with that, who would like to keep, I don't know if we want to have Bill do all of this, but does anyone want to help with, just research, looking at what is out there? For
Well-
other communities, which Kevin also recommended that we do.
Okay, so my question is if Bill's sending out an email to a variety of different towns to gather some information about cost in terms of time and financial resources, couldn't he just as easily ask them to send their regulations?
Probably online, but I will try to have that done for the next meeting. I was just given a task at the last board meeting, which I was not anticipating, so. I will see
And-
if I can get that done.
I don't think it's that integral either to what we need to do at
Right.
our next meeting.
That's good for building the framework down the road, what we
Right.
plan
Right.
for, but yeah.
It's not essential to have for the next meeting. So my question then on the steps is, do you feel that the subcommittee needs to have any type of a task between now and next PC meeting?
Other than what
I think
Andy suggested,
I could try to reach out, but there's really not much for us to do at this point, because we there's really no direction at this point, so.
yeah,
I was just asking the question because at our last meeting, the decision was that we wouldn't meet until we had this meeting to have a conversation. And so I was just wondering whether there were any tasks on Barbara's list or what some of the things that Andy and I and Norman have said, or Howard, that you would want action on that would not be one single person. If the answer is no, then we don't meet till next
yeah,
time.
I guess, no, I
Okay.
think, yeah. We just take a little side road here and look at what zoning could and what the shortcomings would be as well, but what it could mean.
Right, even if we took Bristol's document
Yeah.
and just say, well, if we adopted this, here's the gains, here's what would be better for Rutland Town if we had this document. That's what we have to come up with,
Yeah.
why this document is going to be better for Rutland Town and for all its citizens.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna do that, that's a lengthy document. I would want to do like 10 pages at a
No,
time.
no, I'm saying we just use it and go through and just say, let's pick the good points out as we look at the document. Okay, this paragraph gives us an advantage of doing this over having nothing.
the zoning.
Exactly. So the zoning and yeah, we have to make the entire thing go on. The fact that we can't have the subdivision
No, no.
regulation without the zoning. And the zoning is gonna bring other advantages. I mean, first of all, I mean, the greater gain of the town be able to control larger parcels.
Yeah.
of land.
Yeah, what are the good points of this?
Exactly.
And, from Bristol, and Bill, if you.
Is that Bristol's?
Mhm.
Oh,
And Bill, if you would continue to share any zoning or unified bylaws that the towns that you reach out to share with you.
Okay.
And maybe ask, if they can possibly think of another town.
Is Bristol's document online?
Mhm,
Oh, okay.
mhm.
Oh, well.
It is. Okay, so I think we've got a plan here. Everybody understand what they're doing between now and the next meeting, which would be
the next meeting is 29th.
29th after Memorial Day. Okay,
So you'll let us know if we're going participate in a select board meeting now and then?
No,
We won't.
no, I think we need another group meeting.
Okay.
Get our ducks in a row.
As what Andy was saying with respect to, getting, a consensus among the PC about the reasons why we think we need to
Yeah,
go in
and
the
just to make
direction
sure, I
we
mean, there's
decided.
quite a few people absent tonight, just
Yep.
make sure
Yeah,
everyone's knows what we're doing.
I think if that's the conversation at the next meeting, then the June 3rd meeting could be the discussion. The June 3rd select board meeting. That'd be right after it.
Bill, can you do me a favor? Can you, this will kill my printer. Would you print out one of these full?
The whole one or just
The whole, well, actually, I guess I don't need the whole thing because I have the subdivision one.
just the cutout, just the Bristol, just the subdivision part of it, or?
No, I have the subdivision part. I printed that. As I've been working through it, but the,
I have the whole thing and I have
Wait a
the
minute.
part.
You can have that one. I'll print out another one at work.
oh, okay, great. There we go.
Problem
That's
solved.
perfect.
I don't want to print one out. I'll just download it.
Yeah. I mean, I have it online, but it's, sometimes,
It's 100 pieces of paper. Well,
no, 50,
50.
because, yeah, this is front to back, so.
Okay.
I will make my way through that. I won't have to go, I mean, I've got the insert for the subdivision regulations. And the
Okay.
definitions are less important, but if we're gonna be doing homework on this for next time, I might be able to pull out a couple of bullet points from the other 90 pages or 80 pages.
Excellent.
Not that we haven't already gone over this a number of times, but,
Okay, let's try to move through some of these other items. I think we can. I don't think they'll take nearly as much discussion. Pocket Park Phase 1, if you will,
and we
Is-
have two
is-
documents.
is next. Yes, if anyone needs copies,
Oh, you
you
got
should
big
have-
ones. I have small ones.
well, I've got both. This you may not,
I have these two.
gosh, what is the other one? This is, yes, that to Andy too.
Andy?
That
got it.
is
Well, I
what
got it.
we suggested we would do for the grant that we didn't get. But essentially it just focuses on the southern end,
You're talking about the less detailed one,
the smaller one,
smaller one.
the smaller one, yeah.
Smaller one in the sense of
And the less detailed.
fewer numbers.
So, this is just for reference for you folks of what we thought we want to put in. So I'm wondering, got a short list here of what we could propose to the select board, as phase 1. And that would be clearing the invasives and the dead trees and the whole parcel. Parking lot expansion, perhaps. I'd like us to talk about, I'd like us to address some of the people who still would like to see a boat launch on the southern end. And I'd like to maybe come to some consensus there. And then I think we should set up a meeting with the new full-time rec director in the summer when he takes over his job. So those are just some ideas I had for phase 1. Anything missing there?
Phase
Is
one.
that the right focus?
Barb,
Yeah,
that boat launch that just keeps coming up and coming up, that's gotta come to a head. I mean, I see so much negative stuff about that just really, I think should go away. And we really need to come to an agreement on it. It sounds to me like it's a very dangerous thing to have there. And Andy, you I think made a comment last week,
Hey.
or last meeting we had.
Let's everybody just look at that aerial view
Yep.
of the river.
And that tells you all you know. I went down there the other day. I said, you'll be 100 yards down the stream before you have control.
Yeah.
So it's, I just, and look
a
at the,
fool's errand.
and look at the topographical map right there of how steep it is coming in.
Not to mention, there's no place to put out.
Put
like-
it to, exactly. So I think it should, we should just forget that completely.
And that could be part of phase one, is like eliminate the boat line.
Yeah.
It could,
Uh.
or it's just not, it's a process of elimination. I mean, it's not there on phase one. That, or we make a more strident, or have a more strident position on it.
Well, it's a liability issue. Right?
You would think.
We just say like, yeah, we're not recommending it, we're not planning for it, we're not doing it, so. Just-
It has, at one point, the more detailed map, we had moved it up closer
Towards the
to like
bridge.
the bridge.
Yeah.
Thinking that, we would divide the traffic. It'd be the serious boaters that would go up there. And then the regular folk would be at the picnic tables and the overlook and stuff like that. I'm not sure
So
that makes any difference in safety.
can I offer,
Less liability.
can I offer a question? Is there any place along the Otter Creek in Rutland Town beyond the bridge that would be appropriate for a boat launch?
I've never
Rob-
walked it. So
I'm
I
just
don't
asking,
know.
I don't
But-
know.
But you have
Probably.
such a short run down
It's
to the
all
falls
private
in
land.
Proctor.
It's all private land, I mean, there's
Yeah.
no,
Oh, it's all private land. Okay.
Yeah, it's mostly farmland.
and there's no, like I said, there's nowhere to get the boats out at the other, everything's private till you get to the waterfall, like that's not a good plan, so.
And you can't get beyond the falls. You have to do portage over the falls, right?
Oh, yes, yeah.
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 At Proctor, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You even have to
When-
portage to like get out before the falls.
When-
It's like, it's all over, I mean, there's no path.
So why? What would be the value of doing that?
Just,
There's-
I see zero myself.
That's the problem, right? It was a great idea.
But the logistics are,
Logistic, I mean, if you put a boat launch in and the area floods, it's probably gonna destroy the boat launch. So, like, it just. I think we need to focus our efforts on something we can actually do.
okay, so
So, anything else to add to this list or subtract? So we'll say we do not recommend the boat launch.
we don't, right? I mean, Howard, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that, too bad Jerry wasn't here because I believe that on the north side of the bridge where the sewage pump station is, I believe he's put a kayak or a canoe in there, at some point and went on towards Proctor. And so I'm pretty sure I overheard him saying that once. So he would be a perfect person to talk to. But other than that, all I've heard from others is that those rapids up there are so dangerous that somebody's going to lose their life trying to get into the river.
We don't want that.
And there's so many better places. If you go in, downstream of the Proctor Falls.
Yep.
You've got a huge,
Mm.
a long area where there's places you can take kayaks in and out. The stream isn't running as fast and
Yep.
you have, it's just a much safer situation. You can go just about, I don't believe there's anything between Proctor and Middlebury. As
It
far
would
as
be an obstacle.
that's an obstacle, right?
Yeah.
And just in that, between and up in Chittenden, Lake Bomazene, there's just better areas.
Wow.
So for this,
Okay.
are we talking about just doing 1, 2, 3? And 9?
1, 2, 3, 9.
Two.
That's in phase one. This is gonna, these 9 points are gonna, or 10 points are gonna be broken into 3 phases.
9 is,
Remove or
Either
cover
this-
2 pipe ends.
okay,
And really, that's just getting in there and clearing stuff out. And putting a couple signs up.
got combined sewer overflows too, which are not that conducive to attracting boaters, which may be a good thing, but okay, so on the small map, Andy is suggesting phase 1 be number 1.
Yep.
The parking number 2, right?
Yep,
Mhm.
1, 2.
3
3.
and 9.
And possibly, I mean, certainly 4 can't cost that much money. No, let's leave 4 out of there for now.
We can wait for like when we do the overlook and the picnic tables and
Hmm,
do all that. I would just like to get, part of me just wants to get things moving.
yes.
Howard, are you following? I don't know if you
Yeah,
have the map.
I'm looking at a map, when I was looking at it, and don't forget that the fire district's gonna be putting in a pressure reducing vault right up near Business Route 4. And we don't have the exact location of it yet, but it's gonna go in there someplace between Simons Avenue and the river. But once that's in, it's not gonna be a problem. It's just gonna be a cement vault and
Oh, so it's going to go on the new parcel, the new town parcel?
I'm talking about next to Business Route 4. On the,
Okay.
maybe I'm looking at the wrong map here. I'm not sure.
Are you looking at the strip of land between Simons Ave and, the creek?
Yes, yeah. And it's right up close to Route 4, Business Route 4.
So you are looking at that corner that's bounded by Business Route 4, Simons Ave, and the Otter Creek.
That's correct. Somewhere in there, there's gonna be a good sized manhole vault put in. The
So-
the water line runs right through there. It goes from the bridge and it goes to the fire station. And so it's gonna be on that water line. But it's pretty
I
close,
see.
it's pretty close to the highway.
Yeah, so it's probably in the V-Trans right away.
Yes, it is. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So they will take care. Any land disturbance, I think we would have an issue with the Division of Historic Preservation and maybe some of the tribes. So if V-Trans wants to go through that first with that exercise, what's the timetable, Howard?
It should be in before winter.
Okay, so that's
yeah.
2025?
Yeah, it should be in this year. Yeah, hopefully, maybe in the fall.
Okay. So that doesn't really affect the
The rest
pocket
of it.
park.
No.
No,
Well-
no, really, it's on the outer, and the only thing is unless the monument that you're gonna move down from up,
That's not in phase one, I don't think, Howard.
but that's not a phase one, but I mean, that's the closest conflict we would have, wherever the monument goes and wherever this fire district,
But you're not looking at that in phase one, right?
okay.
Well,
That's good.
not necessarily, but we could. Howard, are you looking at both sides of both sides of the river?
No, it's just,
The west side.
it's on
Just
the
the
west
west
side
side.
between Simons Avenue and the river.
Okay,
My understanding, he's up here. He's somewhere up here.
right, but the DAR thing is over here,
That's where it's gonna be placed?
isn't it?
I thought it was gonna be placed over here by the signboard.
Oh,
Originally. I don't know if I-
originally, and then we talked about, but for the purposes of them having space to get their vault in,
Why
if
don't we let
if we
them get the
delayed,
vault in and then we can make a
then we delayed it.
determination of it.
right. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and 9 for phase 1 and a meeting with Mike Rowe.
Mhm.
Okay. This summer, okay. Anyone want to make a motion to that effect?
You need one?
Probably not.
I'll make a motion though, just so it's clear that for phase 1, we include items 1, 2, 3, and 9.
I'll
from,
second that.
I'm trying to look for a label on this map.
Let's say that's let's use the map date, 1/22/24.
Fine.
Where is that date?
It's in the legend on the right-hand side.
Oh, 1/22/24. Okay, yep.
Okay.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Okay,
See, the removal of the watering trough isn't in any of these items though, right? That we have here.
it is in this one, the larger, the map from the earlier
It's
map.
this
The
one.
early one,
The-
okay.
The,
The
521.
5/25/21.
Yeah, okay, that's,
It's in number 1.
mm-hmm,
We move it across the river.
right, and I see where it is there. But I would think that should be phase 2 after we get the
Yeah.
site cleaned up.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
And it didn't make it into the small map because that was a recreational trails
Hmm.
grant and didn't,
Didn't seem appropriate.
one of the many things didn't quite fit. Okay, river corridor ordinance, I have not had an audience with Kyle Midash. He is incredibly busy all of a sudden it became field season, for him and other people that do the river work. And when I do get to talk to him, part of the conversation will be about what is the point of river corridors in Vermont? Right now, will there be a future for the financial benefits? Will the state continue to keep track of who has river corridors and who doesn't? And number 3, the federal government is not, it has started a process where it's not recognizing federal disasters, major disasters anyway. So the money doesn't have to be spent and that the argument kind of goes away. What disaster, in other words? So that'll be the conversation with him.
I'm hoping that's a temporary perspective that will not hold up for very long.
Right.
We're gonna continue to have disasters, whether people want to recognize them or not.
Yeah. We still have the main rationales for river corridors.
Yep.
That it's safer for people that own the property. It's safer for people downstream, but without the financial incentives, makes it a much harder sell.
Sure. But who knows? With the new administration at a different point in time, it might be a different story.
Right.
And so we might have our work done for us, and then we just get the benefit of the incentive that somebody decides in the future is worth investing in.
But let me double check all that stuff with Kyle and
Sure.
see what the state's thinking is.
really, the ordinance should be good enough that it doesn't matter what the financial incentives are.
You're absolutely right. That's what Barbara was saying.
Because
maybe it can be worked in what we're,
common
what
sense.
we've been talking about this evening.
Yeah, I mean, why not? It's another ordinance.
Mhm.
Make it part of the unified regulations.
Okay, announcements. A couple meetings ago at the select board, there was a discussion with the lawyer who was working on the Act 250 permit for the mall. And I think you probably saw some of the press coverage. He is currently working on an Act 250 permit to demolish the mall. Everything except Spartan Arena, and they're going to keep the Kmart building. And they're going to do some stormwater treatment up there. So that's what he's working on. His name was David Graysick. He mentioned that he would be just perfectly fine with speaking to the planning commission at any point if we had any questions. Maybe as he gets a little further along, we'll have him give us an update.
Sure.
Okay. And let's see, one other thing that I have, and I'm not sure what you folks have, the updated Act 250, the Act 181. There is, we've mentioned the tiers where there would be less Act 250 decision-making about development, be more freedom to do development. There's another tier that is just concerns critical natural resource areas where development might need more oversight. And that process is just getting started with the state. And so there is the first public engagement meeting later this month, May 22nd. So this is tier 3, and this is the rulemaking process. So there is a hybrid meeting on May 22nd. I'm not sure we have any
Thursday, right?
natural resource areas. Yes, Thursday. That, can any of you folks think of any areas that we would want more protection? That we would like to say, well, maybe not housing there, or maybe not subdivisions there.
That we don't already have on the land use map?
Yeah. I don't know if we do.
I mean, anything that we do would be in, like floodplains anyway, wouldn't they?
Well, I don't know if we've got any,
And
anything, with altitude that we want to protect. This, a lot of it's already conserved. Yeah, our town.
I can't think of anything. And we've got our view sheds, but
But yeah, that's not exactly the
same
same
thing.
thing.
No, right.
Okay. Just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Yep.
Anyone else have announcements? Okay, the minutes of April 17th
Move to approve. Second.
on the table. Pretty concise, succinct.
Yep.
It helps to have to go in executive session.
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor of the minutes is 17th of April, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, thank you. We're adjourned. Thank you.